Human history spans back to as early as 20,000 years ago. The first known civilization is known as the Mesopotamian people. They spearheaded the agricultural revolution, had the first writings, and started up the first religion known to mankind. The Mesopotamian civilization was followed by the ancient Egyptians, who built upon those civilizations' foundations. While we have some information regarding the ancient Egyptians, it's not very extensive, and mainly descends from religious texts. So when somebody like Dorothy Eady comes along, it makes us question almost everything that we, as a civilization, believe is true. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy tonight's broadcast of the Scary, Strange, and Outright Odd Show. Dorothy Louise Eady was born in London in 1904 and raised in a small coastal town. At the age of 3, after traumatically falling down a flight of stairs, she began exhibiting strange behaviors, asking that she be brought home. She had also developed the foreign accent syndrome. This caused some conflict in her early life. Her Sunday school teacher requested that her parents keep her away from the class because she had compared Christianity with heathen, ancient Egyptian religion. She was expelled from a Dulwich girls' school after she refused to sing a hymn that called on God to curse the swart Egyptians. Her regular visits to Catholic Mass, which she liked because it reminded her of the quote-unquote old religion, were terminated after an interrogation, and her parents were visited by a priest. After being taken by her parents to visit the British Museum, on an observing photograph in the New Kingdom Temple exhibits room, the young Eady called out, "There is my home! But where are the trees? Where are the gardens?" The temple was that of S.S.O.O, the father of Ramses the Great. She ran about the halls of the Egyptian rooms, saying, amongst her peoples, kissing the statue's feet. After the trip, she took every opportunity to visit the British Museum rooms. There, she eventually met E.A. Wallace Budge, who was taken by her youthful enthusiasm and encouraging her in her study of hieroglyphs. After a close escape during a bombing raid during World War I, she moved to her grandmother's house in Sussex. Here, she continued her study of ancient Egypt at the Eastbourne Public Library. When she was 15, she described a nocturnal visit from the mummy of Pharaoh Seti I. Her behavior, coupled with sleepwalking and nightmares, led her to be incarcerated in sanctums several times. On leaving school at age 16, she visited museums and archaeological sites around Britain, facilitated by her father's investigations into the nationwide booming cinema industry. Eady became a part-time student at Plymouth Art School and began to collect affordable Egyptian antiquities. During her period at Portsmouth, she became part of a theater group that on occasion performed a play based on both the story of Isis, not that Isis, and sang the lamentation for Orsi's death based on Andrew Lang's translation. Then, at the age of 27, she began working in London with an Egyptian public relations magazine, for which she wrote articles and drew cartoons that reflected her political support for an independent Egypt. It's also important to note that during this time, Egypt was still under British rule. Also during this time period, she met her future husband, Ibn Abdel Megoud, an Egyptian student with whom she continued to correspond when she returned home. She finally moved to Cairo after marrying Eamon and gave birth to a baby she named Seti. She herself would change her name to be known as Seti. Bit odd, but I can roll with it. Marriage didn't last. Her habit of going into a trance and scribbling random hieroglyphics at night about her spirit guide completely freaked her husband out. I can honestly say that I can't blame him. Her writings eventually amounted to over 70 pages, detailed with life in ancient Egypt. It stated she was a priestess at the Qom el-Sultan temple and had a child by Pharaoh Seti at the young age of 14. However, she had broken a priestess vow by losing her virginity and took her own life to prevent the pharaoh from being punished for his crime. That was a skanky move by her, but it is what it is. The hieroglyphics also contained accounts of spiritual encounters with Seti and plans to reunite with him in the Egyptian underworld. This fantastical story has been discarded by many as the ramblings of a crazy person, until one day that Seti helped archaeologists find the exact location of the temple garden. She also led them to an undiscovered tunnel at the north side of the temple. Seti died in 1981, after having lived the rest of her days at the Temple of Abydos. No rational explanation for her memories, dreams, and knowledge of Egypt had been offered, and many skeptics find themselves wondering if Dorothy Eady was in fact a reincarnation of the ancient Egypt priestess, Seti. While her story is strange and has many facts to back it up, a lot of it remains unexplained. What do you, the listener, think happened? Was she a crazy lady who happened to be right about a thing or two, or a great liar who fooled many experts in a field? Or perhaps, just perhaps, she was the reincarnation of the mythical Egyptian god? Those questions are for you, the listener, to decide. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Scary, Strange, and Outright Odd Show. And I'm your host, Joseph Jordan, reminding you that the truth is always out there.